Is he this gangster that behind the scenes is that him? Or is that people
Shout
running?
out to Wendy Williams.
Tell me, man, why do you believe that Jay and Puffy is close, even though Jay's lawyer came out and said they're not?
Because Jay-Z and Puff was given an assignment.
The name Shakur alone can rattle the culture. But this week, the noise hasn't just been loud, it's been deafening. For almost 30 years, the story never changed. He was gunned down on the Vegas Strip, another victim of a war between coasts. And then, out of nowhere, the ground cracked. Social feeds erupted, not with another blurry club snapshot or some tourist's shaky Havana rumor, but with a story so explosive it drowned out election scandals and celebrity divorces. The claim? Shakur hasn't just survived. He's back, and he's furious. But listen to this, he's not rumored to be drifting through Havana cafes, hiding from cameras. The whispers insist he's resurfaced with intent. Not for music, not for nostalgia, for vengeance. And the targets named first are Jay-Z and Diddy, the twin giants who turned rap into a billion-dollar empire. Hashtags like Shakur exposes Jay-Z and Diddy panics are flooding timelines. And the question on everyone's lips is brutal in its simplicity. Could this be the most explosive comeback the music world has ever seen?
And that was to destroy East Coast rap. And what I mean by that, and I know people gonna be like, yo, Gene is out of his mind and everything like that. Check this out, brother.
Whether myth or miracle, one thing is clear. The ghosts of 1996 refuse to stay buried. And if Shakur truly walks again, then the story of his death was never an ending. It was the opening move. The storm doesn't calm, it grows. A shaky video hits Twitter. A man in Havana, older now, but walking with the same unmistakable stride, a cigar in his hand. The clip loops endlessly, racking up millions of views before sunrise. Screenshots spread faster than fact checks, and suddenly the internet is split between believers and skeptics. But listen to this, these new sightings aren't arriving alone. They're dragging old ghosts with them. Interviews once laughed off are resurfacing. Bodyguard confessions are clipped and dissected. And one claim rises above the noise. Shakur never died. He was waiting. The inconsistencies fuel the fire. A coroner's report that listed the wrong height, a cremator who mysteriously vanished days after handling his remains, and Suge Knight smirking from a prison cell, repeating the same words for decades. Shakur's not gone. For years, the idea sounded like conspiracy theater, but now, paired with Havana videos and recycled evidence, the whispers feel heavier. They paint a different story. Not a tragedy, but a calculated exile. Protected in Cuba, shielded by allies, gathering proof against the very people who turned on him. And if that's true, then the silence wasn't weakness. It was preparation. Because the rumors say his return isn't about nostalgia. It's about revenge. And the first names on the list are Jay-Z and Diddy. The whispers take a darker turn. It's no longer about blurry footage or mistaken reports. The new obsession is a single phrase ricocheting through comment threads, the memoir. For years, fans spoke of a manuscript, written in exile, locked away in Havana. A fatal diary where Shakur allegedly chronicled betrayals, conspiracies, and names too powerful to say aloud. Industry insiders whisper about it like a forbidden book, a ticking time bomb that could rewrite hip-hop history.
I can't wait. I can't wait for everybody to find out what's really been going on in the background.
But listen to this. Rumor has it the manuscript doesn't stop at broad accusations. It points fingers. It describes in detail who played what role on that bloody Vegas night and what followed after. Executives, rivals, friends turned enemies. Even the men who profited most from his disappearance. The thought alone is enough to terrify. If that memoir exists, it doesn't just reopen history, it detonates it. Jay-Z and Diddy, the untouchable architects of modern hip-hop, suddenly look fragile. Their legacies, built on platinum plaques and billion-dollar deals, would be overshadowed by a single voice from the grave. And the tension only sharpens with each rumor. Because if Shakur has indeed returned, the question isn't whether he'll speak. It's when and how many lives, careers, and empires will shatter the moment those pages surface. Just when the talk of the memoir feels overwhelming, another rumor explodes, and it's even darker. The whispers now fixate on hidden tapes, not demo tracks, not unreleased verses. Private recordings made before 1996, where Shakur allegedly captured conversations too dangerous to ever reach daylight. Here's the thing, these aren't scraps of studio chatter. They're said to be incriminating confessions, recordings where Jay-Z and Diddy themselves speak openly about corruption, backroom deals, even violence ordered in the shadows. Whispers claim these tapes would make Watergate sound like a playground spat. If they exist, they could undo decades of empire building in a single broadcast. Imagine Jay-Z, who carefully transformed his image from Brooklyn hustler to billionaire mogul, suddenly hearing his own voice played in courtrooms and news cycles, not as an innovator, but as a conspirator. Picture Diddy, already drowning in legal battles, forced to face proof that ties him not just to parties and excess, but to the original sin of hip-hop's darkest mystery. The possibility chills the industry. Because if Shakur truly recorded his enemies before disappearing, then these aren't just tapes, they're weapons. And the first question insiders whisper isn't if they exist, but when they'll surface. And if that moment comes, it won't just burn reputations. It could incinerate the very foundation of hip-hop's modern elite. The speculation turns into spectacle. Social feeds, already flooded with Havana clips and whispers of tapes, find a new accelerant: mockery. And no one throws gasoline on a fire faster than 50 Cent. And you know what? He doesn't just hint. He goes straight for the jugular. Posting side-by-side shots of Jay-Z and Diddy, he captions it with a dig that cuts deep. Friends to the end. Still standing together, Jay? Even now.
That's not really beef, though. That's just competitive. energy,
Competitiveness.
All right, so you and Diddy, you and Puff cool?
No, I don't really rock with him
okay,
like that.
damn. All right, I didn't know what that meant.
Okay.
Then. All right, okay. Okay, well, we'll come back to it.
The words sting, paired with explosion emojis and sly references to intimidation tactics. Within minutes, the post spreads everywhere, racking up comments, duets, and reaction videos. For years, Jay-Z's loyalty to Diddy was seen as solidarity. Now it looks like liability. Every photo of the two together becomes ammunition. Every old interview is rewatched through a darker lens. And the more people laugh at 50s jokes, the more plausible the rumors start to feel. The shift is subtle but deadly. The court of public opinion is no longer asking if the rumors are true. It's asking how much truth there is, and how long Jay and Diddy can survive the storm. While the internet laughs at memes, the reality for Diddy is anything but funny. His empire, once the crown jewel of Bad Boy Records, is collapsing under its own weight. Federal indictments now paint him not as a mogul, but as the leader of a criminal enterprise. The charges read like a crime novel: racketeering, trafficking, coercion. Here's the twist: the courtroom whispers are even worse. Witnesses vanish. Others hesitate, terrified of testifying. Lawyers speak of sealed NDAs, million-dollar payouts designed to bury stories before they reach the public. And hidden footage from those infamous parties, footage prosecutors claim shows manipulation and control, sits locked in evidence vaults, waiting for the right moment to surface. The more that leaks, the more the comparisons grow. Prosecutors draw parallels to Jeffrey Epstein, calling Diddy's world a machine of coercion wrapped in luxury branding. And now, layered on top of all this legal chaos, is the specter of Shakur, pointing an invisible finger from beyond the grave. Imagine the weight of that. Federal charges already threatening his freedom, a rumored memoir and tapes that could expose his darkest secrets, and an industry beginning to treat his name like poison. The storm clouds aren't just gathering, they're breaking. And if Shakur truly steps forward, Diddy's empire may not just stumble, it may collapse entirely.
And then what's the stuff that's happening with Wendy Williams? You think this is all connection too?
Of course.
As if memoirs and secret tapes weren't enough, the story takes an even stranger turn. TikTok sleuths and late-night theorists begin weaving patterns, connecting dots that send shivers through the industry. Here, where it gets catchy, they're not just talking about Jay-Z and Diddy anymore. They're dragging Beyoncé into the storm. Viral posts highlight a chilling coincidence: Aaliyah, Left Eye, and Michael Jackson, all gone on the 25th of different months. To most, it's meaningless. To conspiracy circles, it's ritual. Clips of Adele breaking her Grammy in Beyoncé's honor resurface, framed not as admiration, but as allegiance. Threads claim award show worship wasn't fandom, but ceremony. The evidence is flimsy, but the virality is undeniable. And when placed beside rumors of Shakur's tapes, the wild begins to feel plausible. One theory dominates: if Shakur faked his own death, lived under Castro's protection, and now prepares to expose his enemies, then who's to say the rest of the puzzle isn't connected? Ritual dates, secret networks, a machine that sacrifices stars to protect its chosen few. Just when the theories feel too wild to believe, the trail circles back to something chillingly concrete: Las Vegas, 1996. The unsolved shooting that defined hip-hop's darkest night is suddenly alive again. But listen to this. Court transcripts reveal that Keefe D, the Southside Compton figure now facing trial, told investigators that Diddy once floated a bounty: millions for the heads of both Shakur and Suge Knight. For years, those words were dismissed as fantasy, the ramblings of a desperate man. Yet now, as prosecutors quietly draw lines between Diddy's trafficking case and Shakur's unsolved murder, the dots begin to connect.
Any of those Diddy sessions, they don't want it to get out to the general public to make up their brand.
In one police interview, Diddy's name was mentioned 47 times in connection with the drive-by. 47. The number alone rattles even hardened observers. Combined with whispers of hidden tapes and memoirs, the story feels less like rumor and more like prophecy finally catching up. The courts may never prove it in full, but the court of public opinion is already deliberating. And the more these fragments resurface, the less anyone wants to stand beside Diddy. The irony is brutal. For decades, the Vegas shooting was a scar that hip-hop tried to heal. Now, with Shakur rumored to be alive, it feels less like a mystery and more like a warning that refuses to fade.
These cats was doing a whole lot of stuff that people in the industry won't speak on.
While Diddy battles indictments, attention turns to another figure, Jay-Z. The timing of his rise has always raised questions, but in the shadow of Shakur's supposed return, those questions feel sharper. Think about it. In 1996, the same year Shakur was gunned down in Vegas, Jay-Z dropped his debut album, Reasonable Doubt. Back then, he was a Brooklyn hustler selling tapes out of car trunks, barely a blip compared to Shakur's global fame. Yet within months of Shakur's disappearance, Jay-Z's career began its unstoppable climb. Within a decade, he wasn't just a rapper, he was an empire. But listen to this, Jay himself has been candid about strategy. He once said, to be in a deal, you need to know what you can spend, what you need to re-up. At some point, you have to have an exit strategy. He was talking about hustling in the streets, but conspiracy theorists hear something different. The mindset of a man who understood that survival sometimes meant removing pieces from the board. Was Shakur's fall simply tragic timing that cleared Jay-Z's path? Or was it the ultimate chess move, designed to open the runway for a new king? The silence around that question has lasted for decades. But if Shakur really has returned, then that silence may not hold much longer.
A lot of potential. Jay was more quiet. But I mean, I learned that Jay was being quiet because he was taking notes. He was taking notes, observing everything, taking it all in. Because, sometimes you're around and you're watching to see things to do. But some people are around.
If Jay-Z's timing looks suspicious, Diddy's present looks disastrous. His empire, once a symbol of champagne luxury and hip-hop dominance, is unraveling in real time. Federal raids have stripped his mansions, his businesses face boycotts, and his inner circle is bleeding out. But listen to this. The panic is showing everywhere. His legal team files motion after motion, desperate to suppress evidence, to sanction opposing lawyers, to drown accusations in paperwork. Behind closed doors, insiders whisper about frantic payouts, multi-million-dollar settlements designed to silence voices before they reach the stand. And yet, the damage keeps spilling into the open. Hidden footage from his infamous freak-off parties is said to be in federal hands. Former associates hint at recordings no one was ever meant to see. Artists who once called him a mentor now distance themselves in public, terrified of being tainted by association. Even his social media presence, once loud and boastful, has gone eerily quiet. The mogul who built his brand on power, glamour, and untouchable confidence suddenly looks like a man cornered. And if Shakur truly reappears with proof, Diddy's empire won't just collapse, it could vanish overnight.
I don't think they are scared of him. I think they more so, they don't want him to embarrass their reputation and things that they've been known for. You understand?
As the rumors spiral, one truth becomes harder to ignore. This story isn't just about two moguls, it's about the machine behind them. For decades, artists whispered about being chewed up and discarded, their royalties siphoned away, their contracts locked in clauses they barely understood. Shakur warned about it even in his prime, calling out a system that thrived on exploitation. Here's the thing, if the memoir and tapes exist, they don't just damage Jay-Z and Diddy, they tear open the curtain on an entire industry. Imagine documents showing decades of manipulation, catalogs sold without consent, careers buried when artists spoke out. A secret history of hip-hop not as a story of talent and hustle, but of control and betrayal. Today's generation of artists is louder about independence, owning their masters, forming their own labels, cutting out the middlemen. But Shakur's return, real or rumored, could become their rallying cry. the elder revolutionary stepping back onto the stage with evidence to validate everything they've been saying. And if that happens, the fallout won't stop with a few billionaires. It could trigger the most disruptive reckoning music has ever faced. Because Shakur's story isn't just revenge, it could be revolution.
That was all the people that went to the Puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Get punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man. So I believe that's a big problem with a lot of the actors out there because they get fluid. And next thing you know, once you go fluid, it's gone.
And so we arrive at the edge of the storm. Jay-Z, the billionaire mogul who transformed from Brooklyn hustler to global icon, now finds his legacy shadowed by whispers that his rise came at the cost of another man's fall. Diddy, once the face of bad boy excess, is staring down the fight of his life. Federal charges threatening not just his freedom, but the survival of everything he built. And here's the catch. Hovering above them both is the ghost who refuses to stay buried, Shakur. Whether flesh and blood or myth-turned living weapon, he stands as the figure capable of burning the entire system down. A memoir said to name names, tapes rumored to hold confessions, decades of silence now sharpening into a blade. If this is real, it isn't just a comeback story, it's a reckoning. The kind hip-hop never wanted, but perhaps always deserved. Because when the truth finally surfaces about Vegas, about betrayal, about the machine behind the music, the fallout won't stop at two men. It will ripple across the entire industry. So the question remains, if Shakur truly has returned, is he here to settle old scores or to expose an empire built on secrecy, power, and blood? Let us know what you believe in the comments. This story isn't over. In fact, it may only just be beginning.